Hey everyone, how we doing today? This is James Sweeney, aka SplitSuit, and welcome back to another video. And as part of the Ask SplitSuit a Question series, a couple of people did ask hand history questions, and this one actually came privately via Facebook. And Liam just says he wanted to get my thoughts on a hand you played last night. So let's check out the spot. Okay, this hand is from 10 No Limit Online. There's a limp under the gun, folds to hero who decides to attack, totally standard. End up facing a 3-bet, the short stack folds, and here we are. So in this situation, Hero decides to 4-bet, and he says, I decided to go to the 4-bet, and I'm not sure if this is the mistake, or should I just flat here? Okay, so I just want to talk about this spot conceptually for a moment, because I think it's kind of important. So in this situation, let's think about the big blind's range. So in the big blind 3-bets here, I'm actually going to remove a lot of the bluffs from his range, simply because it's pretty likely that with the short stack involved, he only has 6 big blinds left, that he's most likely going to be getting involved, which means there's a decent chance that the big blind is going to have to show down in some way, and because of that, I don't expect him to be showing up here with things like ace-4 suited or any of that kind of stuff. I expect that he's probably going to have more of the value stuff, and it's important to understand what the entire hand looks like and the exact situation for the times where someone is going to like totally delete bluffs and randomness from their range. It's very important. So when we're sitting here in a situation like this, I think he's taking those out. Now, unless I think he's really nitty, and usually I would need information to prove that, I'm usually not going to assume that he's only 3-betting here with queens plus ace king. I'm usually going to assume that it's going to be a little bit wider than that, probably going to include things like 10s and jacks, and maybe ace queen, and maybe even pocket 9s, those kind of things. So I'm assuming that it's wider than just queens plus ace king, because if it were just queens plus ace king, queens is not doing well enough to want to 4-bet stack off, and given the size, we can never 4-bet fold. You know, once you put in more than a third of your effective stack preflop, if you end up facing the jam preflop, you're priced into making a call. You're going to be getting a pretty good price at that point, and it's kind of criminal to fold at that point. So that's very important, and that's why as a pure default, my 4-bet size is not going to be this large. My default 4-bet, whether I'm 4-betting for value or 4-betting with total nonsense, is that I'm going to 4-bet to somewhere between like 20 to 25 big blinds. So in this situation, somewhere around like 230 or 250 is definitely going to be significantly better than going more than 1/3 the effective stack. So at least keep those things in mind here. And I'm okay 4-betting. It's definitely a 4-bet commit mindset. You know, if he jams again, we're going to be calling it, particularly at this size. And just in general, again, if you think he's only 3-betting the nuts, okay, this is bad. But as long as you think he's 3-betting some other things, again, things like jacks and 10s and ace king, ace queen type stuff, then I'm going to be much more on board with this. And again, it's totally done with a value mindset, and we'll just go forward from there. Okay, so as played, we end up getting called, end up going here, he checks, here decides to jam, and Liam says, I'm not sure if I should be checking behind. So I want to talk about this for a moment because this is kind of an important situation. It's about 1 SPR, it's actually less than 1 SPR, and 1 SPR pots are usually pretty damn simple. And this is one of those situations where it's not quite so clear, only because this is like the absolute worst texture we could have caught. There are very few textures that are going to be worse in this exact situation. So I wanted to spend a moment and break this situation down mathematically. So in order to look at this mathematically, we can pull out 2 tools. We can pull out our fold equity calculator, and we can pull out Equilab, and we can get started. So to use the fold equity calculator, just need to plug in a few numbers. The effective jam, what we're jamming for right now, is 629. The pot size is 735, and we are facing a bet of 0 because, well, he didn't bet into us. And then we just need our equity, which we can get from Equilab. Plug in queens, plug in the board, and this is the range of hands that he would 3-bet, call your 4-bet, and call your jam with. So let's give a pretty snug range of 10s plus ace king. We'll talk about this range in a moment. Go to OK, evaluate it. Notice that we have 17% equity. So against that range, and just in general, we would need 28% of folds or more, and obviously we'd want much more than that in order to make profit. Now the issue here is simply this. If this is the range of hands that he's going to call the 4-bet and call our jam with, what is he possibly folding, right? I mean, unless he has like a lot of pocket pairs, or maybe has some things like, I don't know, queen 9 suited that would fold, or maybe a weak ace that would consider folding, or, you know, some total junk, chances are there's not going to be a lot of folding happening, which means probably not going to get the folds that we need, which means we'd probably be better off just saying forget it, checking behind, and just kind of hating life, hoping that we improve for free. I've talked in the past about how I like to play 1 SPR or less than 1 SPR pots, and it's usually just by straight up jamming. But this is a very specific texture because this texture just absolutely nails his range, absolutely destroys it. So that's with that range assumption though. Let's say you think that he's the kind of guy that would have 5-bet preflop with queens plus ace king. Well, then when he gets to the flop, he really has sets, and then maybe you think he has 8s and 9s occasionally, which he'll probably hate life and consider folding on this board, which does a couple different things, right? So this means that if he got here and he would fold 8s and 9s, well, he's actually folding a decent chunk of combos. Of this is 18 total combos. You think he's going to fold 12, and obviously you're generating folds 2/3 the time. That's a fantastic thing for you. So if you looked at it that way, then your jam would be totally fine. And then I really wouldn't have a problem with this. So as always, it's going to be based on the range assumptions that you make. My issue here, I think, is that you're going to get snapped off a huge chunk of the time. You're going to have very minimal equity the times you do get snapped off, and that you really cannot expect enough folds. And this, unfortunately, is just a function of the fact that we caught the worst flop in the entire world. If we catch a different flop, or 99% of other flops, this is going to be a situation where I'm going to be jamming no problem. But on this exact specific texture, I actually think this jam is going to be kind of bad, and I'm really not shocked that we get snapped off by exactly this kind of hand. I expect this no matter what range assumption that I assign him. I just think that against most players, you're going to be running into a situation where you're going to get snapped off a huge chunk of the time, and you're not going to generate the folds that you really need. So this hand is really, really important, again, from the conceptual point of view. Understanding conceptually what goes into looking at that 3-bet range preflop. Understanding conceptually what goes into making a good 4-bet in terms of the size, in terms of the range, in terms of thinking about your opponent. And then conceptually understanding what goes into making that roughly 1 SPR jam, how to proof it mathematically. And again, all the math and stuff is stuff that you run off the table so that it becomes ingrained and you can utilize it in real time, or you're able to at least closely estimate it in real time. So you can say, okay, I think this is going to be good, or maybe not. Maybe I just say forget it, check behind, and hope that I improve for free. So Liam, thanks for the great hand, and if you or anyone else has a poker-related hand or question, feel free to leave it on our Google Plus page. I'll leave a link for that in the description box, and also please make sure to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this type of video. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to let me know. Otherwise, good luck out there, and happy grinding.